Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, February 21st, and we have a new home on Substack, sbnewsmakers.com. Check us out there, like us, and subscribe. And we are joined again today by our all-star panel of top local journalists, Gwyn Lurie, executive editor of the Montecito Journal, Josh Molina, man of many hats and host of the Santa Barbara Talks podcast. And what's his name? Great Poodle, the winning
Yep,
entry.
Welsh.
Uh, the winning entry into the every year's independent top columnist column, Nick Welsh. Hey, thanks for coming, everyone. So the journalism event of the week was Nick's magnum opus, the cover story on the Sable oil pipeline dispute, Crude Awakening. And I think it clocked in slightly, only longer than War and Peace, but still shorter than uh, uh, Anna
The
Karenina.
Mueller report.
Anna Karenina. No, it was a good piece. I mean, because you did cover all the bases, and I could see what happened to you there. This is a story that you could say, oh, there's going to be a hearing next Tuesday at the Board of Supervisors, and here's what it's about. But you know so much about this topic, and you have done so much reporting on it that you had to find a way to try to explain all of the context. And as a fan, a big fan of subheads acting as little traffic signs for readers, I thought you did a good job on that. But give us the 90-second version of what is at stake here, which you covered in great detail.
Yeah, the 90-second version is this, that Exxon's oil and gas plant up along the coast has been shut down for 10 years because of the pipeline spill of 2015. And Exxon sold this plant and its pipeline to this new company called Sable, which is hot to trot to get it restarted. The county of Santa Barbara has at best a shoestring tackle leverage point on it. It is, and that's assuming Sable is wearing loafers. That the county has minimal any oversight. The only oversight it has is whether or not it will allow Exxon to transfer title and permits from Exxon to Sable, and that happens on Tuesday. And it is highly limited and very frustrating for everybody in Santa Barbara that, I mean, this is going to double the amount of greenhouse gases that will be produced in Santa Barbara County if and when this plant gets up and operating. So we have no say other than this highly ministerial, esoteric possibility.
And one of the things you point out, however, is that the state of California, in the form of its fire marshal, did have some say, and that for whatever reason, Governor Gavin Newsom just completely caved in on that.
Well, I don't know whether Newsom caved in, but he certainly did not back up the county. I mean, the fire marshal I take seriously as a committed, competent individual who is going to make sure things are as safe as possible. But the fire marshal has, I mean, here's the deal: you have a 125-mile stretch of two pipelines, and they've got about 150 anomalies. And an anomaly is sort of a cluster of corrosion. So you have this pipeline, it's like a straw with about 150 holes in it, and they want to stick that straw into the water again and suck and see if they can suck the oil out. And the question that a lot of people have is, can that straw with all those holes in it and all those patch jobs be counted on to suck that oil up safely? And we have to rely on the fire marshals because we had no say over how he proceeded.
Yeah. And, I don't think I'm misreading the story. The takeaway is there's not a lot supervisors can do, but Gwyn, you were saying before we came on, you thought they ought to take whatever action they can, even if it's sort of just delaying or symbolic or anything else.
I mean, I think th- the most important job the supervisors have is to try to protect the environment of Santa Barbara County. And I mean, as Katie and Linda and Sigrid reported in our paper this week, what did it say? There's a spill once a year and a rupture every 4 years. So it's not if this will happen again, it's when this will happen again. And the implications are really serious from a business perspective, from a health perspective, from an environmental perspective, from a fire perspective. It's really important. The Las Flores Canyon offshore oil facilities are in high fire areas, and it's it's a really big problem. Anyway, yeah, I think it's really important to slow it down.
So,
And I think this slows it down. I don't think this stops it. The other thing I want to say is, because the Coastal Commission is now, or sorry, Sable has now sued the Coastal Commission, right? Which is kind of, you know,
which is
interesting.
trying to exercise some jurisdiction.
Yeah, it is. And the Coastal Commission, I mean, I really appreciate they can afford to be more brave than the county because they don't have like the real services get cut when the county has to pay a huge amount of money. That's not so for the Coastal Commission, so they could kind of afford to be a little more audacious from a litigation standpoint.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. And I mean, the Coastal Commission has issued multiple notices of violation against Sable for doing pipeline repair work along the coast. And they have expressed great frustration where they say the company assured us that they have stopped doing the work. And then lo and behold, they discovered that it's been doing the work. So twice now they've issued what's called cease and desist orders, which are very high horsey. You will stop, I order you on, almighty, powers. And what was interesting this time around, the Sable shot back with a lawsuit against the Coastal Commission. I think, what I'm hearing from the Coastal Commission is this scared the county of Santa Barbara, but it's not going to scare us. And B, when we go to court, we have a really strong case. We didn't just whoop this out of our butt and make it up on the spot. They need permits to do repair work in environmentally sensitive areas. And what could be more environmentally sensitive than along creek crossings, and where there's all kinds of mischief that can happen when you're digging up pipelines. And so, guess what, dude? You don't like it, but you have to. It's environmentally sensitive. It seems like a pretty plausible, strong argument. And the oil company is saying, no, this is just repair work. The Coastal Commission is saying, no, this is development. And therein, but the meaning of those words have tipped the scale in terms of the legal case. But they're not backing down. And what you really get out of this is huge frustration on the Coastal Commission part. And I would say on the part of Monique Limon and Greg Hart, who represent Santa Barbara and Sacramento, the counties, they won't say abdication of authority.
Oh, total abdication.
But they are really frustrated. They have to do the sort of nuts and bolts work that the county otherwise would have been doing. And if I can just go on just a little bit longer, the whole pretext by which the county allegedly has no jurisdiction is that this is an intra-state pipeline. And that means it goes from state to state, which means the federal government has authority there. Now, when you call the county of Santa Barbara and say, when did that actually happen? When was this pipeline ever used on an interstate basis? They will come back and say, off the record, we have no written documents to prove it ever did. But we talked to somebody who was here for a long time, and they think it was sometime until the mid-90s. But so from the mid-90s to now, it has not been intrastate. And after the oil spill of 2015, the federal agency that did have oversight issued a letter to the county of Santa Barbara saying, guess what, dudes? We're out of here. It's not intrastate anymore. So it's on the state fire marshal. So this is a legal pretext that has no basis in reality. And even if it did, not since the 90s. But I guess back in 1988 or 83, there was a settlement with the county of Santa Barbara and the first company that built the pipeline that said, you ain't got any authority here. And so maybe that trumped reality. I don't know.
Well, speaking of things that have legal pretext but no basis in reality, we got a lot of that going on these days. And just to close on this, there's a whole national political lens through which to view this. Biden on his way out the door, put out of bounds offshore drilling and almost the entire coast. Now here's this little nose under the camel toe, and I'm sure where the Trump administration is going to come in, and it also makes you wonder whether Sable's not feeling emboldened by that. And I was particularly interested, Nick, in the little anecdote you told about the Sable guy who you went to have lunch with, and he talked to you for a while, and then when the Independent ran a favorable profile of Linda Kropp by Vicky Riskin, he said he's not going to talk to you anymore. Which, I mean, there's a Trump play if I've ever heard one. Fake news. Oh, we can't have that. Now,
it was a one-sided piece. I got it, but it's what I told him in the moment. I said, hey, if you let me interview James Forrest, who's the head of Sable, we'll put him on the cover in a heartbeat. And then lastly, I said, we've written a lot about Sable since it popped on the scene 2 years ago, and I think our coverage has been pretty straight up. And
well, you'll be calling it the Gulf of America before long. I'll tell you.
What? Yes.
All right, now listen, Josh. So this whole Sable business is going to come up before the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday, and I can't imagine there'd be any less than 11,423 people that are going to want to testify on it. But at the same meeting, they're going to be talking about this proposed salary increase that you and your henchman, Andy Caldwell, wrote about, and which they have now been deluged with attack emails and various other things, some of them not very nice, according to some supervisors I've spoken with. Where does that all stand? Are they going to back off on that? Is that going to go ahead? And do you think there will be more people or fewer people testifying about the salary increase than there will be about Sable? Josh, you're muted. You're muted.
I like it better that way.
You do? Gwyn prefers it. Keep the mute on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, unfortunately we can't.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What's the best line Gwyn's going to get in today? So good one.
I don't know. It's still early.
They're doing their tricky agenda management. So they have Sable, which is going to take up hours and hours. And then after that, they have this proposal to increase salaries by $58,000. So I think
49%.
Yeah, so I think there will be a lot of people who will speak on that, but fatigue will play a factor, of course. And probably a lot of the people complaining about Sable will probably maybe stick around to complain about salaries. But essentially, Human Resource has done a study and decided that the Board of Supervisors are underpaid from counties around the state. So they are only ahead of San Luis Obispo County, but other similar counties, they're below. And so this proposal is to increase their salaries by 49% from 115,000 to 171,000, and in 1 year. Like that was what they had proposed, which was on the administrative agenda when they set the hearing. As you know, as I know, the Board of Supervisors have been deluged with emails since the story broke and since Andy Caldwell went to the meeting and made hay of it. And they are basically saying, this is ridiculous. Who gets a $58,000 pay raise? So what are they going to do? I mean, they may just double down and try to educate the public about the amount of work they do and say, this is good for everybody. And our staff is actually paid more than us, which is possible. The chief of staff could be paid more than the actual board member. Or they may try to phase it in. Maybe they'll scale it back and say, we're going to get to this number in 4 years, 5 years, something like that. But regardless of where you stand on this issue, whether you think it's a good thing the public servant should get this amount of money or not, it is an example of horrible public relations and messaging and storytelling by the county. You just don't throw a proposal like that on an agenda and expect the public to support it. You need to do a.
Oh, you throw it on the agenda and assume people aren't going to look at it. That's what happened.
Well, that's what they
I mean,
do
that was
too.
like such a Jimmy to Andy, and it was. I mean, it was really in the context of a broader, like the DA needs to get more money. The auditor controller needs to. They all needed these raises, and they're all getting 15, 5, 9% raises. But then you go buying over here, paragraph 6. And the county supervisors will get a $58,000 pay raise. And it's just, from an HR standpoint, you can totally defend it, but from a political standpoint, are you out of your mind? And I think it'll pass. That'll be the other thing. I think it's going to pass.
Do you?
Yeah.
By what vote? 3-2?
I think 3-2.
Wow. Gwyn, where do you come down on this? You're always someone who gives a very thoughtful analysis to complicated things and somewhat counterintuitive. You think they're worth it? You've endorsed both Laura and Roy Lee.
I do think they're worth it. I don't look, I feel it's really important that you don't have to be rich to hold a public office. And I know a lot of people on the other side are saying, and by the way, let me preface this saying, I think journalists should be paid more too. So let's just put that out there. But if we could just stop thinking about our own salaries for one moment and think about what I'm saying, like, Laura was making 30% less than her chief of staff. They are making less than 50% of what many of the county staff are making, who they supervise. I just think that you can't make the argument that this is going to create career politicians, which is one of the big arguments on the other side. We have career politicians. Every one of our politicians stay in office until term limits or until they age out of it.
Right, Steve Lavanino, he would be a fabulous career politician. I mean,
yeah, well, yes.
He doesn't threaten to fight people. But, yeah, he'd be great.
I mean, Steve Lavanino pointed out that, and this is true, that supervisors got a COLA raise a few years ago. I think it was like $5,000, and they got the ire of the community. So no matter what, they're going to get the ire of the community.
Yes.
So I think they're just figuring, let's just take the political hit right now. Let's vote on this one time. Let's get it up to where it should be. I mean, they were supposed to do it in steps. Salud was supposed to vote on this 8 years ago, but he didn't.
I want to talk about process a little bit, because we talked last time about different ways they could do that, and there was something. Was there not something? Some independent Janet Garuffo's commission or something that decided what came of that?
Salud voted it down, I think, because he was running for Congress. He didn't want to take the political hit.
Yeah.
And so it didn't get passed. But one other thing I just want to say is, and this is just in general, so forgive me, but I'm so pissed off right now about everything that's going on in this country. And not because I'm a crazy liberal, because I more and more find myself right in the effing middle, okay? But this fake news thing has got to stop. These lies have got to stop. That Andy Caldwell is on the what is it called? Cal Coast Commission. What is that?
COLAB.
Yeah. I mean, that he's on there saying that they have a 3-day-a-month job is so insulting and so wrong. I mean, honestly, at one point, I thought about would I run for no cracks, please. I thought about would I run for a supervisor position when Salud was leaving a seat. And I thought, oh my God, they get invited to 60 events a week. They can only go to about 10% of them. They piss everyone else off.
No
Like
room for
Roy Lee had
introverts.
to make a deal with his family that he wasn't going to be around for the next few, you know, his wife had to take over everything. These people work really, really hard.
Yeah, the idea that this is a 3-day a week job is ridiculous. And Andy, this is a case of, the dog barks getting it right once a day, or the broken clock getting it right. But the optics were just, they should have staggered it in. I understand the argument is no matter how you do it, it doesn't work, because no matter how you do it, people get an uproar. So you may as well.
Could they
But-
still stagger it? Is
Huh?
that
They
something,
could.
is that
Yes,
something
they
they
could.
could choose to do?
They haven't actually formally talked about it in public. They're going to do that this Tuesday. I don't care whether they deserve 300,000 or 100,000. It looks bad that they're approving their own salary increases. So I don't know the process. I don't know if voters should decide this, if it should be something that they vote on to decide. But I don't, it's for me, it's not an issue of like how much they deserve. Obviously, some of them deserve a lot of money, some of them work harder than others. It's just, it looks bad, at a time when what's going on in our country and
But everybody else is
it
taking
just,
it.
do
It
we
does
really?
look bad. It totally looks bad. Does Congress vote on their own salary
No.
raises?
No, remember when they had the House bank scandal? No, I'm dating myself now, back
This
in the
is like the
1991.
Bill Wright?
Yes, no, the answer is no, and neither does the legislature.
all right, they should not vote on their own salary. I think they hate voting on their own salary. They tied this to making, I think, 70% of Superior Court judge
Right.
salaries or something like that.
It's a
But
big test for
I mean,
law.
they have been underpaid for decades. If they decide instead to stagger it in, it'll probably be more popular. But no matter what, people are gonna.
If there's any upside to this, it is kind of funny that they did this a month after Doss Williams left office, because it's okay now.
I'm waiting for Doss to put out a statement attacking
Okay,
the
but here,
salary increase.
okay, and when this will satisfy, I don't know if you were watching, but it came up at the Board of Supervisors a while ago. Andy Caldwell that you referenced, he had written a broadside attacking, the fiscal care being taken by the county of Santa Barbara. And Steve Lavanino and Bob Nelson, the two conservatives up there, just went off on him. They just went off on him. And Steve Lavanino said, look, you have not, how much money do you make? It's like over $200,000 a year. What the hell do you do for your money? You are completely ineffective here. Not one of us returns your phone calls. You haven't moved the needle an inch, a centimeter, a millimeter. You are completely irrelevant. You are the barking dog at the moon that everybody wants to please shut up. And he just went off on him. So
That's very
Well,
funny.
can I just, this is just a little bit of a tangent, but a friend of mine had a conversation recently with Billy Bush. Do you remember Billy Bush? He was
Yeah.
the producer in the bus when Trump made his famous grab him by
Grabbed
you
them
know
by
what.
the
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, by the kitty cat. Anyway,
by the pussy.
and apparently Billy Bush told my friend that Trump in that interview kept going on and on about how The Apprentice was the #1 show in the female 24 to 40 demographic or something like that. And he kept saying that. And when they cut the camera, Billy looked at Trump and said, you know, that's not true, right? It's not the #1 show in that demographic. And Trump said, Billy, you say things enough time and people will believe
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
this is what we're seeing over and over. We're seeing it with Ukraine. We saw it with January 6th. We saw it with the election. And it's like, it's working. It is a winning strategy. And I think that this country has to say that is not okay anymore. I don't care where you stand politically. You don't get to write that they work three, whatever he said, a 3 day a month
No,
job.
apparently you do, thanks to social
That
media.
is called freedom of speech. Apparently, one of the things that I was looking into as a result of Sable, there's all these lawsuits out against Exxon because Exxon did the cutting edge research that proved the existence of climate change way, way back, like 30, 40, 50 years ago. They then have buried that research, and then they have spent millions of money on advertising, denying that research existed or that it was true. And there have been lots of lawsuits on this, and those lawsuits have not prevailed yet. And one of the reasons is that people get to lie as part
Well,
of freedom of
people,
speech.
right. People believe the lie. And someone said recently, and I thought this was a very interesting kind of way to frame it. The US is a business. It's a business, and it's going to put business interests before anything else. And I mean, yes, there's freedom of speech, Nick. There's also freedom not to be an ignorant fool and believe things that are clearly not true.
Yeah, but
And I
then fortunately,
think
there's also freedom to be an ignorant fool and
that is
believe
true.
things that
That
are
is a very good point.
49.8% of the population decided to do that. All
What
right.
did, what did, wait, I just want to, what did Gilda Radner, or what did they call Jane Curtin? What did they?
You ignorant slut.
No, I'm kidding.
I think it's
I was
a,
All
just
right,
trying to get someone to
just to
say it.
close on this because I want to talk a little Trump. So Josh, so this is kind of an early test for the Laura Capps administration. I mean, whether she, sleepwalked into this or whether however it happened, she's going to have to handle this on Tuesday. How do you think she ought to do it? Do you think she ought to come forth with a proposal to segment the thing, or just take Andy on head on, or what?
Well, they need to get out of their heads that Andy Caldwell is the one raising hell over this, because if they make it about Andy, their judgment's going to be clouded. They need to think about, what does the general public think when it comes to amount of salaries that are going to go up that much at this point in time. And if they think that way and just forget about the extremes, they should definitely phase it in. They should come up with a plan that says, we want to increase it by this percentage over this amount of years because we've been underpaid for years, and here's the data to support it, and this is the goal. And then they can educate us on how much work they do. I think it is surprising. I mean, I know this, but I think most people would be surprised to find out the chief of staff makes more than the elected. Chief of staff does a lot of work, of course, and they're the backbone of the
Maybe they
supervisor.
should cut Wade's salary.
And at least they should cut his wardrobe salary. The
Okay, that's the best line you have.
Except for the
That was much
socks,
better.
he needs to buy socks. Please.
yeah, I don't think he doesn't wear socks.
Yeah, that's exactly. All
But
right.
I can I add one thing to Josh? I think this is even a bigger. First of all, I would argue that Laura sleepwalked into that position, but we can discuss that on another show. Um, uh,
Sleepwalked into the way that it came out, you mean?
I just think she ran a very hard campaign the first time, and that played a large role in what no one running
No, no,
against.
no.
Anyway,
I was talking about the political position of having this sort of erupt out of.
On
Oh,
the
I see.
administrative agenda. Yeah.
I see. But the other thing is, I think this is an even tougher new test for Roy Lee. I mean, I have a hunch of how he'll vote, but I don't know. But a lot of people, there were a lot of whispers that he's kind of a closet conservative, that he was a Republican, and so I think Roy has a lot of integrity, and I think it'll be very interesting. This will really show his values. But by the way, I would say that even more on the Exxon vote than on this vote. That'll probably be the bigger political test, the Exxon vote, or the Sable vote. But on this too, this is a big test for him.
All right.
in a weird way, I think it's an easy one because at the end of it, who's going to remember it?
I agree.
You're going to absorb like this hand grenade. It's going to look terrible. I think your point, Josh, about they don't need to worry about Andy. They need to worry about the general public.
In
But
5 years, no one will
we-
remember this vote.
next time anybody runs for office, it's like there'll be much other. It'll be brought up as sort of an also ran issue, but it won't really flip anybody.
Well, that's, that's an interesting point, and it goes back to what you were saying, Gwyn, about information and stuff. There's such a recency bias. It's like, when did that happen? Oh, that happened 2 weeks ago. Oh, I thought it was, 10 years ago. But one of the things that I find interesting about the salary issue is the way that I think it does provide and will provide kind of a case study of, how strong the Trump Doge, whatever you want to call it, MAGA movement is here, because I think that's what is a lot of behind some of these nasty emails per se.
But I mean,
But
Jerry,
Gwen,
no one is.
let me ask you this: we saw on President's Day the second demonstration in Santa Barbara against what Trump's doing to the federal government. It wasn't as large as the first at the Unitarian Church, but we really haven't seen that much. I mean, there were maybe, I don't know, a couple 100,000 people across the country who protested and demonstrated on President's Day. Why is it that there is so little civil society pushback on what Trump is doing when it's so much more drastic now than it was in the first term when he was
Are you
just
asking
hobbling
me?
around? Yes, I'm asking you.
Well, first of all, I just want to say one thing about the Doge and the salary thing. Like, uh, no one is being enriched more by their public position than Donald Trump. So this is
Well,
all kind
Elon
of
Musk.
amazing. Elon Musk, yeah, that's fair. He needs more money. But anyway, I had a conversation. That's a very interesting question you're asking. I think there's a lot of fatigue. I think people are, I don't know why, but they seem shocked that he's doing what he said he would do. And, I think we should know by now that when people tell you who they are, you should believe them. But I had a conversation recently last week with a friend of mine. Her name is Ilwad Elman, and she's kind of a major political figure in Somalia, three-time Nobel Prize nominee. And anyway, I asked her how this was playing there because she had just gotten back from Davos. And she said, it's interesting because they talked to a lot of political leaders in this country. And she said everyone's kind of licking their wounds. They're trying to figure out how to, what to do about this. Some leaders are saying they're going to sit this one out. They're going to wait 4 years. And she said, where I come from and where other kind of global South leaders come from, we're so used to crazy people coming into office all the time that we don't have the luxury of being able to sit back and lick our wounds. And I think people are so shocked that we don't have the stability that people thought we had, that they don't know what to do with it. And they feel like protesting is just like such a little thing to do in light of such an onslaught. Like it doesn't feel like it's going to make a dent. And so I think people are trying to figure out what to do that will make a dent. And that's my perspective. But I thought that was something interesting. We're so used to global North leaders teaching global South leaders how to do it and how to think and how to protest. And I think that was a good lesson from them that you don't get to sit back and take things for granted because everything's human made and everything could be undone if you get a charismatic enough personality who repeats lies often enough.
Yeah, see, I don't think that's true that the protest doesn't matter. The first polls came out, Trump's been in office for a month now, and there's a bunch of polls came out this week. And, just to sort of oversimplify, I mean, what they showed was 98% of Republicans approve of what he's doing, 98% of Democrats disapprove, but like 37 to 40% of independents only agree with what he's doing. And I don't think this is why people who, don't pay a lot of attention to politics voted for him. I do think it was about the price of gas and the price of eggs and all those other things. And it wasn't this lunatic with a chainsaw loose in Washington, D.C. So I just
To
think
go to your point,
that
Terry,
public, huh?
to go to your point, I mean, I think it does matter, but I would say that Hannah Beth Jackson made a really good point at the Unitarian Church rally. Now, Hannah Beth always shreds the speakers. Whenever she talks, the distortion comes in. But she was talking about we got to get somebody other than Chuck Schumer to be our spokesperson. Yeah. I mean, you talk about the human embodiment of ambient. He just puts the room to sleep. And, come on, dude, and we've been sort of hobbling along with Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer. Oh my God, take Sominex tonight and sleep. I don't want to be ageist, but you gotta have some mojo. And there ain't no mojo coming off of either one of those two.
Or really in
And now you have Adam Schiff, and Adam Schiff is starting to show a little bit more bounce, a little bit more fight, a little bit more spice. But at the top of the party, I mean, put down the bifocals and let's have a talk.
Well, and not only that, whatever happened to Barack Obama and Bill Clinton? I mean, don't they have anything to say about, let alone,
you know what? They are part, I'm sorry, they're part of the problem. They created a lot of this. I personally really believe that. I've been on monthly calls with a lot of people high up in the party who are in the rooms, who were in the rooms when they had the 7 or 8 candidates for party chair, and they said they are not talking about
Sominex, that guy.
They are not talking about the rebuilding that needs to happen within the party. They're not talking about it. And when you raise it, you're disloyal. And they are talking about redoubling their efforts. They're not pulling down their bifocals and looking at what really happened and who they need to be representing. And I mean, I always say this, but I so believe it. You've got to be willing to lose in order to win. And we need someone who will stand up.
Well, they're getting good at that. They're getting good at that.
No, I don't think they're willing to lose. I think they are so desperate not to lose that they do.
All right.
I wanted to say one thing, Jerry, real quick on the local protests, and I'm sure I'll get shot down here by all three of you, but I would say that there's a diversity problem. There's an age problem. Just to be honest and blunt, there's a lot of older white people who are at these protests locally, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think we need to somehow figure out a way to reach the younger generation demographic. And I'm not talking like 20s, I'm talking 30s, 40s, 50s. Like there is just a very obvious group of people who are speaking the loudest. And I wonder where everyone else is. Where are the people of color? Now, I was not at the protest on the east side against ICE. I did not attend that. But
there were 300 people there.
But those were all mostly
that was very organic.
That was very organic, and they were younger, and they were Latino, and it wasn't your farmers market demographic. And I think that
so
right.
I think we should figure out a way to like bring these groups together, because it's easy to look at a photo and somebody to dismiss the person who's protesting, and that defeats the point. The message is the point. And so I just like a message to the organizers of there has to be some collective sort of effort here to bring people together, because we know a lot of people are upset, but who do you see out there are a lot of the familiar faces.
Can I throw
the
out
old with the reliable boomers? That's who, those of us who grew up in an era of protest and know something about it.
You know, I had coffee this weekend with Jeffrey Stewart from UCSB, and
he's doing a book. He's doing a book event at
Tuesday night. Yeah. Chaucer's. Yeah, on the New Negro, his book that won the Pulitzer Prize. But anyway, we're talking about that this generation, because you're talking about diversity of generation, and I think that's what's so interesting, is that that's what's missing. And I think about my kids, it's like this younger generation, they never knew what we thought America was. Like they came of political,
and they haven't, they're been, Trump is normal to them.
They're not sure what they're fighting for because they don't know what they don't have. So it's like, how do you do that?
When do you define yourself as a boomer or a millennial?
In my heart, I'm a millennial, but in actuality, I'm a boomer. I think I'm on the cusp.
And Josh,
I'm a millennial cusp person.
where are you? You're a millennial, Josh.
No, I'm a Gen Xer. Come on. We know what's
Ah,
up. We're not entitled or privileged at all. Gen X.
out of here. Nick.
I gotta go, Jerry. I got
All
another
right,
call.
we all gotta go. Thank
See
you,
you, man.
Gwyn Lurie, Nick Welsh, and Josh Molina for being with us. Thank you all for watching. Check us out on Substack, sbnewsmakers.com. Subscribe, like on YouTube, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
All righty.
Hold on.
Um,